Hi, I'm Eric Ostro, host of Live at the Lortel. For Season 3, we are focusing on the intersection of arts and advocacy. So many off-Broadway artists give back to their communities. This season, we are giving them the opportunity to speak about how and why they chose the causes they devote themselves to, and how those causes help make them the people and artists they are today. Good evening, everybody. My name is Eric Ostro, one of the hosts of Live at the Lortel. I'd like to welcome everybody. First, I'd like to bring on my co-host for the evening, my dearest friend in the world, Joy D. Michelle. Joy, good evening.
Hello, love. How are you?
I'm good. You look beautiful, as always.
Thank you. Thank you. And you look
Let's
great.
get right to our guests, because we have a lot to talk about, yeah?
Yes.
Reynaldo Piniella is an actor, writer, and director from East New York, Brooklyn. He is currently understudying in the hit Roundabout Broadway production of Trouble in Mind. He received the Fox Foundation Resident Actor Fellowship from Theater Communications Group, the Thomas Barber Award for Playwriting, the All-Stars Project Fellowship for Young Artists of Color, and a Broadway World Award for Best Actor for his performance in Thoughts of a Colored Man at Baltimore Center Stage. American Theater Magazine called him a theater worker you should know. Reynaldo is very involved with Episcopal Actors Guild, National Association of Latino Arts and Culture, and the Weeksville Heritage Center. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our guest. Please welcome Reynaldo Piniella.
Hey, y'all, what's going on?
How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm a little embarrassed by that bio. I'm like, oh man, I hate like bragging about myself.
No, but that's why we brag for you. That's the whole
And is
point
it
of it.
bragging when someone's just telling the truth?
I know. Ooh, man, that sounded like my therapist right there. Ooh, I
Yeah.
need that. Yes.
Just receive it.
She
Yes,
will be that
indeed.
for you.
Yeah.
You are kind of glowing this evening. You have this incredible glow about you. How is the show going? I know you're understudying that incredible A Chance as
Trouble in Mind.
Trouble in Mind.
Yeah, it's going
How's it
wonderfully.
going?
It's amazing. You know, it was my welcome back to theater. You know, being away from theater for so long during the height of the pandemic last year, you know, I really lost my artistic fire. And our director, Charles Randolph Wright, when he called me asking me to understudy, you know, it was the blessing I needed in my life. A play that is so necessary, that should have had a Broadway premiere 6 decades ago.
Yeah.
A powerhouse cast, glowing reviews, naturally. I assume some Tony nominations in his future as well. So, you know, my life's good right now. And I kind of want to like semi-break some news, if that's okay with the two of you.
Of course, please.
Breaking news coming now.
Yeah. So, you know, I'll be doing 2 Broadway shows at the same time, you know, which in many ways is like an incredible gift that I could have never expected. You know, I just want to tease what it is just because the press release is coming out in the next day or two.
Okay.
But what I'll say is it's a show about the Black male experience. It has a Black male creative team. It takes place in my native New York as well. And I start rehearsals for that next week. And my first performance will be January 4th on Broadway.
Wow.
So by the time people listen to this, hopefully that news will be out and they'll be able to see, you know, what I'm talking about. So my life's good. I think that's the glow you're seeing right now.
Wow. I have no words. I'm so happy for you. What incredible news. Will you still be able to be doing both?
Yeah. So what's really cool is that Roundabout and this upcoming show worked out the scheduling. So if, you know, Roundabout needs me, my understudy for this next show will go on and I'll go to Roundabout to fill in for Trouble in Mind. So it's like one of those utopian experiences that, you know, we dream about as actors. So
Yes, of
I know what
course.
show you're talking about. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Really
Thank you.
good. Have you gone on for Trouble in Mind yet?
Not yet. You know,
Okay.
with all the COVID things happening and, you know, Omicron and all that stuff, you know, in some ways, I wish I'd never have to go on, you know, because the cast is so on fire. I'm a little nervous, you know, going up there with Chuck Cooper, LaShawns, and, you know, Jessica Francis Dukes. These are people who, you know, whose game is on the next level. So if I go on, I'm like, oh my God. But
You
yeah,
said
yeah.
something a moment ago when you were talking about being in the show, that it's a show that's very necessary. Can you speak to that, why you feel it? Because there are many people who may not have seen the show yet.
Right.
So what makes it a necessary show at this time right now?
Oh yeah. So, Alice Childress, our powerhouse playwright, someone who I wish was more even well known in the American theater lexicon. She wrote this play 6 decades ago that really deals with the way we as Black people and Black artists are seen in the world, right? In the ways that we've had to sacrifice our integrity to make it or be accepted by the white establishment. And the reason why the show is just now getting its Broadway premiere is that 6 decades ago, Alice Childress did not want to compromise on her vision. She did not want to change the ending of the play, which I will not spoil, but in many ways is what we're seeing right now in our country, which is us as Black people truly demanding that now we get the respect. Now people hear our voice. Now we get the representation we've all been yearning for. So honestly, it's the play of the moment. It was, in some ways, it's almost sad, I would say, that the play is still relevant because we're still having those same conversations 60 years later, but at least we're having them right now.
It's so interesting, because I was reading all about the show, and that the playwright, the producers and everybody wanted her to change the ending, and she said absolutely not, and then chose to pull it out.
Mm-hmm.
She says, I will not change the ending of my play, and it didn't go to Broadway. So that's quite a statement. That's quite that she would have made her Broadway debut, but she stuck to her guns and her integrity, and it's incredible story.
Oh yeah, and it's what we're trying to build on. The legacy we're trying to build on right now is theater artists, right? We're saying, coming out of this pandemic, no more 10 out of 12s. We're not sacrificing our time and energy, to work on a contract that's not honoring our contribution as artists. We're not going to settle for an American theater that's not acknowledging the contributions of all artists, of Indigenous artists, of artists from the LGBTQI community. We're finally staking our claim and making our voices heard. And Alice Childress was doing that, 60 years ago, before it was truly popular and encouraged to do so.
Agreed. I would love to get to your advocacy, because you're a young man and you're so involved with very young man.
That's that
so
moisturizer
involved.
right there.
Well, it's a good one. Moisturize early. I would love for you to talk a bit about the Episcopal Actors Guild of America, EAG, which has provided emergency financial assistance to performers of all faiths for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about your involvement in this and what it does?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I first heard of the Episcopal Actors Guild because I had a medical crisis. I was diagnosed with severe hearing loss in my left ear. So in my left ear, I have the hearing of a 70-year-old person. It's really hard for me to walk through my life, on a day-to-day basis and just be able to understand people. And I needed a hearing aid. Hearing aids are often not covered by insurance. So, I'm always getting by paycheck to paycheck. So I did not have the funds that I needed to get this life-changing device. So the Episcopal Actors Guild really stepped up and gave me the money I needed. No questions asked. It wasn't like they expected to be repaid. It wasn't like they were expecting me to volunteer my services or advocacy in any way. They just saw an actor in need and did what was, needed financially to support me. So I reached out to them naturally to thank them for their help, but also offer my services in any way, So they have a council of arts professionals that essentially help guide the direction of the organization. So naturally, during the pandemic, you had a lot of actors who were suffering, who were losing their health insurance, that were worried about making their rent, having food on their table. And EAG really stepped up to provide financial support for all of these people, at the moment when they needed them the most. So now, as we hopefully start to progress back to a life outside of the pandemic, fingers crossed, EAG is really looking at their funding and who they are funding and saying, maybe we can help more trans individuals. Maybe we can help more people who, are not able-bodied. What are the deficiencies right now in who we're helping? And I think the council I'm a part of is really helping push them in new directions, and also, make them more ambitious in the ways they're helping out. They have a food pantry where people can just walk up to their church on 29th Street and get canned foods. If you need laundry detergent, garbage bags, whatever it is, they'll give it to you, no questions asked. So it was an organization that was kind of a no-brainer for me to, support and help out any way I could.
Are these services only available to actors, or are they available to anyone who comes?
That is a great question. So it is available to anyone in need. So yes, arts professionals, actors, directors, producers, designers, but also if you're just a person who, could use some help, you can send them an email, you can show up in person, and they will help out, because even if they cannot help you out right now, when they get more funding, they'll do everything they can. They will stay in touch with you to make sure, your situation has been fixed. If you need mental health services, they will connect you to those people. If you're an actor who cannot purchase new headshots, they have a free headshot day.
Get
out. Exactly. Look, they offer free acting classes. If you want to learn how to, do Pilates, if you want to do some improv, they have these services for free. And, part of my responsibility on the council is making sure people know about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because I saw the two of you say, for real? For free?
Yeah.
Exactly. And a lot of people have that same reaction. So I'm just trying to get the word out about all these amazing opportunities.
Yeah, it's been around for a while too. So when I was reading about it today, I mean, everybody knows obviously about the Actors Fund, Equity Fights AIDS, and about the incredible amount of money that it raised during the pandemic. But something like EAG is also just as incredible, because they are obviously handing out, but we need to get the word out. What can people do that are listening and watching to lend a hand besides donations? What can they do?
Oh, yeah. So you can go on the EAG website, actorsguild.org. You can reach out to them on social media. And, EAG is really a small operation. I believe they only have 3 full-time employees. And these 3 employees are so dedicated, truly so pure of heart. And if you're like, hey, I just want to help, send out envelopes asking for donations. If I want to come and offer a free class, if you're a yoga teacher, if you're someone who has a service they can provide, you can do that. If you even, can give some canned goods that you have a surplus of, you can do that. So there's so many small ways you can give back. And, EAG is an organization that just wants to grow, wants more of a community, people of all backgrounds, there's people of all ages, all ethnicities. So it's honestly one of those like dream organizations to be involved with.
And can you say what the contact information is for us?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So the website is actorsguild.org. And I believe that's also their handle on social media as well. So
we put it right up here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Actorsguild.org.
It's the professionals right here. I don't even need to say it.
You can go to our website too to find it. I just think it's incredible the way, maybe because of the name Episcopal. I know the organization is open to all faiths. It is very LGBTQI friendly. And it's for everybody. It's not just for Episcopal people that pray that way.
Right.
It's for everybody.
Absolutely. And you actually brought up a great point, because just this year they changed the mission statement from people of all faiths to people from all faiths and also no faith. So people who do not have any religion at all, because they don't want any barrier, anyone to be turned away or feel alienated. They truly want to be as welcoming as possible.
It is beautifully inclusive. I love that.
I love that. I love that they made that change.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ms. Joy. I'm sorry.
I have a question for you in terms of it. You're very involved with that, but then you're also very involved with NALAC. Can you tell us about that as well?
Yeah. So NILAC. So NILAC is the largest nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of Latino artists. So Latinx artists in the United States of America. And I first got involved with them because I was feeling very frustrated about the state of our politics, particularly coming out of 2020 with everything that happened that year and the beginning of 2021. So I had signed all the petitions, I had called my senators, and I'm like, what more can I do? You know, we sit around and we complain, we tweet, we send, posts on Facebook. What can I actually do to affect change? So NILAC offers this free institute called the Advocacy Leadership Institute. And what it is that it teaches artists how to be advocates in Washington, D.C., right? It teaches you to talk to these Congress people, talk to their staff, and how to actually lobby them to advocate for the causes that you truly support and want to see enacted into law. So through this program, I was able to have one-on-one meetings with Congresswoman Velasquez in Brooklyn, with Congressman Castro in Texas, and talk about the things that are truly important to all of us as artists right now. For example, equity, Actors Equity has been sending around these emails about the Tax Fairness Act, right? To get those laws changed from the repealing the Trump tax code changes, right? That was something we were talking about earlier this year. And a lot of these Congress people had no idea, actually. They had no idea that we could not deduct, our transportation costs anymore. Or if I hire a coach, I used to be able to deduct that on my taxes, and now I'm unable to. So when we actually put a human story behind our causes, these Congress people were able to see the light of day, And I think now we're starting to see those traction, get some traction behind these causes, because us as artists, we're truly harnessing our power as advocates, right? We contribute so much on stage, on screen, and there's no reason why we can't also do that in the halls, I should say, of Washington, D.C.
Wow. Is this organization also inclusive, where people outside of the Latinx community can come and get these services as well? Or is it just Latinx, or is it Afro Latinx, or?
Absolutely. Oh, I'm loving these questions. So what's really cool is when you look at the diaspora, right? For a lot of people, they don't recognize that there's a lot of Black Latinx people, right? The Afro-Latino population. When you think of who Latinx people are, it's people from Spain, it's people from the Caribbean, it's people from Central America. So you're able to tap into a huge swath of artistry, yes, but also the issues that are very important to us. When we talk about Black Lives Matter, we're also talking about Latinx lives as well. I'm a guy who's biracial. I'm Black, Puerto Rican, and Cuban. And for so long, I felt ostracized by the Latinx community. And, this organization is truly one that's saying that, no, all of us share this history, this heritage. Let's actually work together rather than alienate each other and push each other away.
I'm fascinated by this organization. Can you tell me a little bit about the training that they do with you? And because that takes some chutzpah to get yourself trained by somebody who knows how to talk to a congressperson about making change. So I would love to hear a little bit about what that training involved.
Oh, yeah. So this training was very intricate. Some of it made my head want to explode, but a lot of it was very nitty gritty. It's like, who are the staffers? Who are the people you need to get in front of? How can you use this 30 minutes of time you get in the best way? So it was training us to pitch, to lobby. It was training us to network. It was training us to even protest, to march, to find out the best ways to knock on doors. And when I was in the Institute, it was all virtual because of the pandemic. But a core part of the program when it's in person is that you actually go to DC and you go to these offices and you meet with these people and you build up that confidence. Because I can say for myself, talking to a congressperson was intimidating. I didn't feel like I was enough. Who am I? I'm not, trained in the political jargon. And then suddenly I have a meeting with Jerry Nadler's office, a high ranking official in, the US Congress. And they're asking me for, what bill number was that? And what congressional term was that bill introduced? And I'm like, and I'm freezing up. But in many ways, this institute is giving us a safe place to grow and develop, because it takes, time. It takes chances to fail to make you truly an impactful advocate.
And are they helping get the appointments for you? obviously,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. And what NILAC understands is the huge lobbying power they have.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, being the largest organization that's supporting Latinx artists in America, you're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. And these Congress people truly want to get in front of us and win our favor. So often they were very receptive to us. It was not as difficult as we thought it would be to get appointments, to talk to these people in between their congressional meetings, and also connect them and say to Congresswoman Velasquez, oh, we just had a talk with Congressman Nadler and he's able to sponsor the bill. So will you now co-sponsor it? So we're actually building connections within Congress already.
And so what's the process of a person applying or getting involved or getting the training? Do they apply? Is there a wait list, or how does that work?
Yeah, so there is an application online, and the application is truly just trying to get a sense of who you are as an artist, yes, but then also why you want to advocate. Like, what are the causes you're truly supportive of? Because for me, I could talk a lot about, the taxes, about the ways maybe we can incentivize inclusivity when we make art, right? Sadly, we've seen in Hollywood that, when you bake it into the tax code, suddenly these producers are like, oh, yeah, we can be inclusive. Hopefully we'll get to a point where you don't need to do that in order for them to tell our stories in a true way. But NILAC is truly trying to get a sense of what you're passionate about, because they want a great intersection of backgrounds. So my class had artists from Arizona, people from California, from Chicago, from Mexico City, from all over the country and the globe, because ultimately we all have a common goal, which is to make the world and this country a better place.
Eric, did you have one?
I do. The other thing that you're involved with is you are very involved with Youth on Stage.
Yes.
And you work tirelessly with kids from boroughs that don't have the capacity or the funds to do theater or improv or things like that. And you're very involved with teaching too.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing to me. You do so much. When do you sleep? But please tell me about, I would love to hear about Youth on Stage.
Yeah, so Youth on Stage is a program of the All Stars Project. And the All Stars is an organization which changed my life. So All Stars is a nonprofit organization that believes in the power of development, right? And what that means is exposing young people to new experiences, new opportunities to push them out of their comfort zone. So as a young guy from East New York, Brooklyn, the schools I was going to did not have arts programs. My schools were predominantly made of Black and Latinx people, and we had no creative outlet, right? We would go to school and we would go home. And because we had no extracurricular activities, you had young people, getting in trouble, maybe not making the best use of their time. So All Stars is one of the organizations which are looking to fill that gap. That is saying these young people from the Bronx, Staten Island, Queens can come to our organization free of charge, right? And they can get classes like in Youth on Stage in theater, or they can even get business classes through the Development School for Youth, right? And I'm a graduate of both programs. So with Youth on Stage in particular, it's a free theater training program that is run by theater professionals. So this past term during the summer when I was teaching, I was able to bring in all of my working friends, people who have been on Broadway, off Broadway, TV and film. And I asked my friends, what do you want to teach? What is the acting class you wished you had when you were, 15, 16 years old? And you have people say, I want to teach a clowning class. I want to teach a class in voiceover. I want to do a dance class. And we're able to make these young people stretch and laugh at themselves and smile, during a year, 2 years almost, when young people have not been able to truly socialize in person, not been able to play, to see their friends after school because they've been on Zoom. We're giving them a safe space where they can stretch, where they can discover new aspects of themselves, a new area of life that maybe they never thought was for them because they've never seen a play before. Because I can say growing up in East New York, 42nd Street was a 90-minute commute. So I wasn't going a roundabout, the Lucille Lortel was an hour away. So I wasn't seeing any shows over there. So Youth on Stage, we're bringing these young people the art to them. And it's been honestly such an amazing experience to be able to come back and teach, coming from that teenager all those years ago, and now feeling like I have some wisdom to impart to these young people.
So I know,
no, go ahead, Joy.
I know you graduated from both of these programs, and you're very, very active politically and socially and so many other things. Can you speak to the responsibility that you feel that artists have to give back or get involved or reach back? What's your point of view about that?
Oh, yeah. So we as artists, we have such a power to connect, to shine light on stories that are not heard, seen, and to give voice to the unheard. And that last aspect, giving voice to the unheard, is actually how I've felt for much of my life. Coming from an inner city community that people are kind of frightened of, honestly. Even when I walk into audition rooms to this day and I say I'm from East New York, Brooklyn, people say, "Oh, what was that like?" And already they have so much judgment for the life, I've lived. So I think as artists, we can be the educators. We can be the advocates. I've heard many people growing up say, you can only be an artist if there's nothing else you can do, right? Because the life is so hard. But I actually believe because we are artists, we can do anything. We can be the president of the United States. We can be the politician. We can be the teacher. We can be the host. There's so much that we're able to do because of our innate curiosity, our innate ability to empathize. So, you asked me, when do I sleep? In some ways, all of these experiences are invigorating me. They're pushing me to live life in a fuller way because I'm realizing how much I actually have to offer, and all of us do. And I think the pandemic really forced me to reflect and say, what in my life am I not doing enough of? And I think it was, giving back, being an advocate, because so much of my life before the pandemic was self-serving. It was, I need this acting job because then I want to get fancy enough that I can be on live at the Lortel, versus let me do work that feeds my soul and spirit, right? And actually what I found is, as I fed my soul and spirit, more creative opportunities that are aligned with my interests have come to me. And I don't think that's a coincidence. It's because I'm manifesting the life I want to live. I want young people to come see my work and see themselves reflected, to feel like they have a space and a voice in the American theater.
I also think it's you have a big aspect of giving back. And when you're giving back and giving to these young kids and giving your time to these organizations, the world gives back to you. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, like for example, this past semester, Youth on Stage, we had this young woman named Pooja, right? And Pooja is currently in India, right? Because we've been doing this program virtually, we've been able to have young people in Mexico City and Oakland, all over the globe. And Pooja talks so much about the COVID crisis in her native country, and how actually for this 2-hour time period that we had Youth on Stage every week, she was able to disconnect and feel joy. That to me makes it all worthwhile right there. Yeah. Seeing a young person like that, just like forget about how hard her life is and just smile.
Yeah,
that's beautiful to hear.
In preparation for this interview, I went digging through the crates looking for information on you.
Oh, Lord.
And there was an interview that you did that, as the mother of an Afro-Latina, it really it breaks my heart to hear that conversations that people my age, who at your age then were having, those conversations are still being had. And people are still feeling the having to choose, or being treated a certain way by different groups at different times. And I know that the majority of our audience is not that demographic. So the majority of this audience, this is new information too. So
Mhm.
can you speak to that? Can you speak to what it means to be a member of the Afro-Latinx community that has to balance what it means to be a part of the African American community, to be a part of the Latin Caribbean community, and to just be a human being and artist at large?
Oof,
Those are-
man. Oh, how much time we got? So, growing up, my mom is a Black woman. My dad is a white passing Puerto Rican and Cuban man. Um, and I always lived in this dichotomy, right? And my dad's family did not talk to me growing up because my dad had a child with a Black woman, right? And feeling like you've been ostracized before you're even born, it forced me into a box where I never felt like I had support, where I never had a community. And unfortunately, some of those feelings have continued in my professional life. I think in many ways, the New York theater community can be very segregated. And what I mean is you have like the Black theater community, the National Black Theater, Classical Theater of Harlem, New Federal Theater, those folks. And then you have the Latinx theater where you have, INTAR, Pregones, institutions like that. And so often our communities don't intersect. They don't connect. Right. And someone like me who actually lives between and in two cultures, it's hard to feel like, okay, now I'm Black and oh, today I'm this, because that's not actually my reality. So it actually pushed me to start to create my own work, to say, all right, how can I actually create opportunities where my people can see themselves fully realized? And in my introduction, you mentioned my fellowship through Theater Communications Group, right? And an organization that has truly supported me and made me realize my worth as an artist is the Classical Theater of Harlem, right? And there has been this stigma that, oh, theater uptown is not good as theater downtown. And I think that's a bunch of BS, right? Because Classical Theater Harlem saw a gap, saw a place where all of these classical institutions weren't tapping into the rich history of the African diaspora, right? Not tapping into the incredible artists of color we have in the community. And they said, great, we're going to create shows for our community here in Harlem, free of charge every summer. And you're going to hear and see yourselves reflected, right? But I went to CTH and said, hey, we do amazing work for the Black community. But when we think about Harlem, it's the Blacks, it's the Puerto Ricans, it's the Cubans, it's the Dominicans, it's the Mexican. How can we actually bring it together? And that's what we're working on right now. We're working on a show that's actually going to be for and with the community. That's going to have community members on stage, like the Public Works program at the Public Theater. Because if there's any time for us to come together, it's right now. It's in a pandemic. It's coming out of a pandemic where so many of the people who have suffered the most are Black and brown folks. So yes, it's been hard to always feel like I'm of two minds, two experiences, but I think it also gives us a great opportunity as artists to finally show the nuances of what our life is, can and is actually.
That's beautifully said. I think I saw that same interview, and you were talking about colorism. And when you say you were talking about race issues, sometimes someone will ask about what your ethnicity is, like checking your Black card, or are you oppressed, or when you are working with kids, or when you're working with advocacy and one of your philanthropic things, that people say, well, are you oppressed enough to be able to talk about something like this? And I find that so fascinating. Well, of course you are, but you still get to question.
Oh, yeah. Like I remember very prominently, I was working at a major regional theater that has a Latinx theater festival, and an artist who went to a very beloved educational institution said, what are you? Right. And I told him what my background is, and he's like, oh, okay, so you're Black. Right. And he wrote off entirely my Puerto Rican and Cuban ancestry. Right. So still I'm dealing with those stigmas, those misconceptions. Thankfully we're having more nuanced conversations around colorism now. and I think it's brought up in Trouble in Mind, right? So, for example, Brandon Michael Hall, the actor playing John Nevins in Trouble in Mind, is a darker skinned actor, right? And he's a fresh faced guy, thinks this is his big break as an actor, right? And then he gets, shocked at the end, is what I said. So Charles, our director, said to me, look, you're a lighter skinned guy. Actually, in this time period, they would have treated you differently. Right. So in your performance, as you prepare this role, let's deal with that colorism. Let's deal how maybe these white professionals may have been more open with you. And I'm glad we're able to have those kind of conversations more and more. But at the same time, that doesn't diminish my life experience and diminish everything I've had to push against, because I've walked into auditions for August Wilson plays and had directors say, are you even Black? Right. I've had casting directors question if I'm Black. So, I sigh because you feel like it's 2021. We should know better. But still, there's so much work left to do.
What's your? Go ahead, Joy. Go ahead, Joy. I'm sorry.
Eric and I went to graduate school together, and so we have a teacher, Hal Scott, who is, if you don't know who he is, you should look him up. He is a legend. I don't know if Eric knows this. He stopped acting for that reason, because Hal was a very, very fair-skinned man. He was in the original production of After the Fall. And so he oftentimes played a Jewish man or an Italian man. And in many spaces, they would feel as though he wasn't Black enough. And then when people would find out that he was Black, then they would want to, so he went into directing and teaching. And so this was 60 years ago that he was dealing with this. And so here we are 60 years later, and you're fighting this same fight. It does make me very, very sad that the idea of coming together like this organization that you spoke about, that they're wanting to bring people together of the diaspora and say, let's talk and let's figure out what we can do as artists. That's not the first time this has occurred. So whatever, I hope that a little bit of time is taken to look at different organizations that's done it in the past, to figure out why it didn't last and what can be done differently to make sure that this really grows and permeates. Because at some point, this has to be more than a trend. It has to really be a permanent way of being that grows. And that's not a question; it's just a statement. I'm sorry.
No, it's great. My question to you is, Reynaldo, if you're in an audition room and someone asks a question like that, and I know what Joy's answer would be because I know this woman. It's my closest friend. But when you go in for an August Wilson play and somebody says that to you, what is your answer? What was it 10 years ago, and what would it be today?
Yeah. Oh, wow. So 10 years ago, which I think was around the time this director asked me, are you even Black? With a smile on his face. Not considering the fact that August Wilson himself was a very fair-skinned man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think I would have just gave a simple yeah. But in some ways now, it almost makes me think if someone brought that up now, I would choose not to work with that person. Right. And I think I say that because I'm truly considering now not only the theater, the pay, all of those specifics, but also how is this going to feed my soul and my spirit? Do I want to be in a room with these people for 3+ weeks rehearsing? If there's previews past that, because I think the power of no is a very strong one. It's something we see being utilized in Trouble in Mind very powerfully. So I think that's something I'm trying to use more in my life, is saying, you know what? It's not my job to educate you. We have so many resources now that people can educate themselves. If you choose to be small-minded, that's your struggle. I'll go into the space that's going to welcome me and see me as a whole human being.
That's wonderful.
I love that answer.
I want to leave you with a little something. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the power of no is amazing, like what you're saying, right? Leave them with something before you leave.
Yeah.
So when they ask you something ridiculous, Eric knows this is my go-to.
Mhm.
How do you mean?
Mm.
Make them say it.
Mm.
Are you even Black? How do you mean?
Mm.
You don't
Mhm.
have to defend it. You don't have to. You tell me, what do you mean by that?
Right.
And let them, and before you leave, let them sit with the thought that, oh my goodness, I was being small-minded. Because oftentimes small-minded people don't even know they're being small-minded.
Right.
And if you get defensive with somebody who's small-minded, then you're just that angry Black man or that hot-headed Latin man.
Mhm.
So just let them sit with that. How do you mean? And
Mm.
then so
Yeah. No, I need to receive that and incorporate that, because even now, as you were saying that, I was reflecting on the fact that Stephen McKinley Henderson, who in many ways is a legend and a master of August Wilson, is also a very fair-skinned man,
Mhm.
right? Ruben Santiago Hudson, where that Santiago originates from. We have these performers that contain multitudes. So in some ways, I appreciate that statement because it's encouraging them to see all of us for who we are, not just, in this individual moment that I have. Yeah.
Yeah, don't let them put you on the ropes. Just stand firm. How do
Hmm.
you mean?
Yeah.
What tell me about, the fact that you have to kind of in some situations prove your Blackness, which seems to come up for you.
Oh man. Oof. It's a lot. It's a lot because also so many people have ideas of what Black people sound like, how we should
Mhm.
look like, how we should walk, how we should talk. So I think for me, I always felt like I needed to code switch when I was coming up as an actor, right? And the goal for me coming up was to actually be accepted in white spaces, right? To be able to do the Shaw, the Chekhov, the Ibsen, these white master
Of
playwrights.
course.
Yeah, but then as I matured as a man, I'm realizing now that you can do all those, Eurocentric classics and also, an Alice Childress play. Also, an Amiri Baraka and August Wilson, and Erica Desperanza Dickerson, whose show Colored Water just closed at the Public Theater. This new generation of playwrights who are carrying and building on the legacies of the playwrights before them. So I think now actually my life's journey is coming into the fullness of my Blackness, because for such a long time I felt like I had to suppress it in order to be accepted. And actually now I think I'm unlocking my authenticity. That's where, we're moving now, hopefully, as a culture.
That is beautifully said. You really will. Joy, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I feel like I'm getting on a soapbox right now, so that's why I'm a little bit hesitant. So,
Go on.
Do it.
it's when the diaspora really, really, really realizes and understands that we are the global majority, everything will shift. But there's something about the idea of breathing life back into all the separation that I've seen it happen. I've seen it go from, when I was a little girl, hey, say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud.
Mhm.
And then that segued, I was a part of the neo soul, the whole movement, when it first started and everybody wanted to be down. And oh my goodness, I listened to you in that interview and you talked about classics and you said something and I felt so old because you mentioned Tupac. I was like, what? So I'm going, we really are, and it just made me think that I've seen the rise and fall of different things,
Mhm.
right? And I just really hope for the young people coming up, my daughter being one of those young people as well. She's young and she's an artist, that there is a real understanding that being human is what's first.
Mhm.
That's what's first, right? And then being able to stand firm in whatever it is that you identify in,
Mhm.
and not whatever it is, whether it is a member of the LGBTQ plus, A plus A1 plus, one of those, y'all know what I'm saying. Whether it be a member of that community, a member of the diaspora, a member of whatever it is that you identify in, to stand firm in that and not have to apologize for it.
Yeah.
It feels like it happened at one time, but then it went away. So I hope whatever that little secret thing is that's missing that makes it stick and it can become permanent, that people are okay being human and people are okay accepting people for who they are, that thing, you guys find it and help it stick.
I agree. And one of the most profound experiences of my life was going to the African American Museum in Washington, D.C. And what really hit me was just how young these leaders were. So many of them were in their 20s and 30s when they were making these huge stands, demanding that people see us for who we are as full human beings. And I needed that reminder that I'm already capable of great things, that all of us are, no matter how young, no matter what our origin is. And I do think it's a moment of great systemic change, not only in our business, but also the world at large. I'm so hopeful that we're seeing now, these amazing Black women playwrights finally get a voice. We're seeing more Indigenous artists. We're seeing people who have been silenced for so long finally be seen and recognize they're part of the majority, the global majority. And the Gen Zers are no joke. I mean, they got the TikTok, they grew up with the internet. I think now they're realizing like, oh, right, we can change the world because we are backed into a corner by climate change and these huge issues. And if there's any moment now to, take the reins and seize control, it's now.
You mentioned playwriting. Can you talk a bit about your play?
Oh, wow. So I have several plays now. No, I'm very proud. I'm very proud, and the reason, yeah, thank you. So, my first play that I wrote was called Black Doves, and it was born out of the fact that my mom, this Black woman who has helped shape the man I am today, voted for Trump twice, and you think like, I think it was about like 92% of Black women voted for Trump. But 92% voted for the Democratic candidate. That's a big misspeaking moment right there. So my mom was part of this small majority that voted for this man.
She was part of the 8%.
Yeah,
Wow.
this very small minority who voted for a man that stands for everything I detest. Yeah, and it was hard for me to truly reckon with that. So the play started as just, it was me working through those feelings, the feelings of a son who felt betrayed. And what it quickly evolved into actually was a play about generational trauma, about processing the things that are passed down generationally that often we don't like to talk about, right? The things that we've experienced as members of the global majority that we think are just part of our existences versus things that actually, we can process, we can understand, and we can move forward through. And how I first talked about it, I was like, I wrote a Black Chekhovian play, right? And what I meant by that was, I got to do these plays by these great white writers like Chekhov, where these people got to like dream and ruminate and go through indecision and love and lust. And they all came up in a huge family estate. And I'm like, this is my family, like we have roots in North Carolina. We have roots in Brooklyn. We talk about our wants and our needs. And so often I didn't get to see those plays, on stage, contemporary plays. So I wanted to write a play about Black love, about Black joy, where, we're dealing with these problems, but on the other side of this hill is love. It's the thing that's going to sustain us and get us through. So I wrote this play, won a playwriting award, got me a literary agent. I just had a reading at the National Black Theater a few weeks ago.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah. So now I'm sending it out to, all the theaters and, fingers crossed that, a year from now, hopefully we'll be watching a premiere of it somewhere. This upcoming Sunday, excuse me. I have a virtual reading. So depending on when you're watching or listening to this podcast. It may have already happened, but of a play called Son of an Unknown Father. And it's about Martin de Porres, who was the first Black saint of the Americas. And he was a guy whose parents were born into slavery. You know, he was given a religion that was used to enslave his people. And he managed to still lead his life with love, where he was able to find joy and light within these holy words. So in many ways, the play is dealing with this mix of cultures that we talked about. You know, he's a guy who was growing up in Peru with that culture, but his dad was from Spain. His mom was from the Caribbean. So these the musicalities of the language and the sounds and the sights. And it's like a community gathering event. So I think in many ways, like, community is the aspect of theater I'm most interested in. You know, if we're coming together in a space right now when, you know, people may feel unsafe, they may not be totally ready, how can we actually leave the space in a better place than when we entered?
Now, is that a virtual reading?
It is, yes. So it's free of charge this upcoming Sunday. It's through a company called Skeleton Rep, which is just dedicated to getting work from the initial writing period to the workshop, right? Because just getting that professional workshop, as we know as creatives, is so hard. So they're allowing you to be, you know, a little dirty, to get audience feedback, try some things. So it's a really ambitious play, but at the same time, I think it's something that's really going to bring people together and shine a light on the intersectionality we have as Black and Latinx people.
Is this the play that deals with the family dynamics with the voting, etc., or that's the play before?
Oh God, yeah. So Doves, you know, certainly started in a Black Dove started in a way that was very steeped in the 2016 election, you know, and that moment. And in many ways, I think it's evolved from that. You know, it's dealing with a mom and son who don't often see eye to eye, but at the same time, you know, have this shared bond and the shared connection that, you know, us as people of all backgrounds often have with our family members.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm also developing a different project that's actually a card game. And it was developed with the Civilians, which is a research-based theater company, producing organization, produce shows at the Public and 5090s 59, Ensemble Studio Theater. And it's motivated by the environmental justice movement, a movement that's trying to reverse the tide of climate change that's being led by Black and brown people, particularly women. And it's a card game that's truly showcasing the different ways that regular people can create the change they want to see. You don't just have to be advocates like us. You don't just have to, you know, have fancy degrees. You can be the mail person, the sanitation person, and, you know, make small changes or lobby for big changes in the laws. So it's, you know, it's a really immersive card game, and we're currently developing that from a virtual space to something that could be physical and donated free of charge to people so that they can share this tool and learn how they can create the change they want to see.
Okay, Reynaldo, you have to roll it back.
So I know I'm throwing it all out there.
Roll it back. It's a card game?
Yeah, it is a card game. It is.
And so you play the game with other people.
Yeah.
And is it so that you learn information?
Great. Okay, so let me pitch this game a little bit. So the working title is Environmental Justice Card Game. You know, maybe down the line we'll get, you know, a less literal name. But the first move of the game is you pick your community members, right? You pick the player you want to play with. So you can start.
Wait. Is this protected? Is this idea protected?
That's a great point. Whoa. That was a great point. It is not protected yet. It's not.
Then don't talk about it.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, but yes, it's something that it is both a learning tool, but it's also a very fun way to work together with friends or even strangers. You know, because I think that's ultimately the ways we learn best is when it's fun.
Yeah. And I think the idea, I know where you're going with it, but that's something we should talk about offline because the idea is so good and there are so many thieves out there. You know, people taking things and it doesn't belong to them. But the idea from what I can envision sounds absolutely incredible. Reynaldo, what
So good that we
is
don't want to.
what's your dream when we come out? I mean, I know that a lot of Broadway is open and off Broadway is starting to open now, and theater across the country is opening. What is your hope and your dreams when, let's say, a year from now, when we are all back, hopefully without masks, and we can go to the theater and not have to worry about, our having our vaccination cards and stumbling it out of our bag and giving it to what's your dream for the theater?
Yeah. An issue I'm truly passionate about is accessibility, right? Because I think about me coming from East New York. I could not afford a ticket. First, I have to get to the actual theater commuting, but then, you're asking me to shell out, $30+ because I know now a lot of theaters are introducing these young people programs, like Links Tix through Lincoln Center, Hip Tix through Roundabout. So I'm looking for ways that we can actually create theater for the community, for, people of the global majority, where they feel welcome, where they see themselves on stage. We lose the elitism of theater. I truly want a theater that's formed by the people. One of the joys of the pandemic for me was actually doing these Zoom plays because I was able to work with artists from different parts of the country and the world for the first time. And I know we can get very New York centric in the American theater, but actually I'm intrigued by all of these stories outside of the city. Like, how can we actually learn more? Like, yes, we often think of ourselves as these liberal, forward thinking people, but we all have our blind spots. How can we challenge each other? How can we nurture each other more? I'm always looking for opportunities that we can share, that we can give back. I think, Colored Water was a great example because they had nights where, it was for Black women, it was for nurturers. They're gearing it in a way that's actually in a helpful, healing way. The subject matter of that play was very serious and very necessary, and at the same time, the playwright was very concerned with making sure people leave that space better. And that's what I want from the theater on the other side of this pandemic.
For yourself as an artist, this is a question to ask you. When you're young, it might be a big question to ask, but I have a feeling that you have already thought about it. What would you like for your legacy to be when you're done as an artist?
Wow, man. I thought about this a lot, with the
I
passing
knew
of,
it.
particularly with the passing of Sondheim recently, this guy who has changed the face of theater, changed the face of musical theater forever, and the outpouring of love, but also the love he shared. These people sharing the letters he wrote to them, these personal notes, the care, the sensitivity he had with actors in the audition room, the ways that he chose to see the fullness of who people were.
His
That's what
gentleness.
there's so much we could say, and in many
Mhm.
ways, regardless of what you think of his art, of his work, whether you like musicals or not, you see his humanity and you saw all he was trying to contribute to the world. And I think that's what I want people to recognize from me, is that I was really trying to make the world a better place, to give back, to help foster the next generation of artists and thinkers, to make their path easier. Just because I think it can be a very lonely pursuit, what we do as artists. It can feel like it's every person for themselves. And if I can be a mentor, if I can be a teacher, if I can be a nurturer and a healer, that's who I want to be.
Well, you are an educator and a nurturer, and what you're giving back to these kids and what you're giving to all of your philanthropic work is incredible. And a young man of your age understudying a huge Broadway play that should have been here 60 years ago, and you'll be doing another Broadway play. I can't wait to find out what that is. But I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here with us for this hour. You were a wonderful person for us to do our last podcast before next year, because you gave us a lot to think about. You're really a very special artist, and I'm very grateful you are here today.
Can I just say one thing?
Whatever you
I
like.
just say one thing. So this interview was rescheduled previously, right? We were supposed to do this at an earlier time.
Right.
But the reason I rescheduled that event was I was asked to do a fundraiser, right? It was a fundraiser where there was no expectation of the outcome of the fundraiser. However, that particular fundraiser led directly to me getting Trouble in Mind, which led directly to this next Broadway show. Wow. So I think in many ways it was meant for me to be here with all of you to come full circle, right? To thank you both for giving me the space to amplify these causes I'm passionate about. The teachable moments I even had tonight about how I can respect who I am in my artistry and make sure I'm leaving people with something before I walk out of a space. I think you two are carving an incredible legacy yourselves just by doing this. And I'm thankful to be a small part of it.
Thank you so much. You're so lovely. That is our show, ladies and gentlemen. We are off for the next 3 weeks for the holidays, but we're back on January 10th when we will interview storyteller, director, and activist Shalon Livingston. More information about our guests and how to attend a live recording online, visit live@thelortel.com. Thank you for joining us. Remember, the new Omicron variant is very serious. So get vaccinated, wear a mask, get boosted, and be safe. We hope to see you at the theater soon. And finally, happy holidays, everybody. On behalf of everyone at Live at the Lortel, I'm wishing our listeners a happy and a healthy new year. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I thank you, Joy. I thank John Andrew. I thank you, Reynaldo, and everybody on our producing team, everybody behind the scenes in sound and marketing and everything. It's been an incredible year, and I look forward to next year. Yes. So thank you all. Have a great evening. Good night.